Good morning, everybody. Good morning, everybody. What's going on? Monday, June 23rd, 8 a.m. on the dot. Appreciate you guys hanging out. Thank you very much for being here. What is going on? The NBA season is officially in the books. 2024-2025 season done. That's it. No one could complain anymore about the previous season. Oklahoma City Thunder, NBA champs. NBA champions. Okay, we got a packed show today. We got a lot going on today. I do have a guest today. So we got a lot that we're going to hit on. Of course, I'll do my best to try to get to everybody's comments. Hopefully everybody had a great weekend. Cheers to you, whatever you're drinking this morning. I'm definitely enjoying a nice cup of coffee. Quick quote for everybody. Ultimately, you just have one life. You never know unless you try, and you never get anywhere unless you ask. Ultimately, you just have one life. You never know unless you try, and you never get anywhere unless you ask. Okay, so if you guys got a quote you guys want to share with everybody, feel free to do so. You guys can see here a little bit of the rundown that we got going on for today's show. So let me kind of walk through everybody in that real quick, and then we'll take it from there. First things first. OKC wins the NBA championship. We'll talk a little bit about last night's game. I did end up doing a post-game show last night. That was kind of easy, right? Game 7. That was it. Talk a little bit about the game. Talk about Tyrese Haliburton and just how awful luck that he unfortunately had in regards to obviously being healthy for that final stretch there, that final game. So we'll spend a little bit of that, or we'll spend a little bit of time on that. Guest Eric Pincus is going to join the show, so I'm looking forward to having Eric Pincus on the show. Part of Bleacher Report, so he'll join the show. We got a lot of off-season questions I want to ask him, kind of some stuff, obviously, in regards to the Lakers and everything else. So we'll spend some time on that as well. Just kind of looking here. What else we got? Next steps for the Lake Show. Obviously, now we could kind of start turning the page to next season. Not that other teams already haven't. I mean, we just saw KD get traded yesterday. So I think that was a domino that was going to happen. I think that was a domino that it was just a matter of time, and it did happen. So next step for the Lake Show and what they do in the offseason. So we'll focus in on that. KD trade to the Rockets, just kind of I ended up doing a video on that one as well. Just kind of what that means to the Lakers, what that means to some of these other teams in the Western Conference. I'll probably explore that more with Eric Pincus. It's interesting. Right after the season ended, there's already new power rankings that are out, Vegas odds that are out for this upcoming season. I know that this is based off of not even an off season yet, but I think it's interesting to just kind of look at basically what everybody thinks of where the Lakers are, what everybody thinks of where the rest of the West is, the impact of the OKC championship, the Tyrese Haliburton injury, all that stuff. So we'll take a quick look at that, and then we'll do the weekend recap, and then we'll call it a day. So I appreciate everybody hanging out. Thank you for being here. Let's take a look at a couple of these comments, and then we'll get the show started. All right, let's I know there was a couple. Let's see. Here's a good one right here. Success has no expiration date. Your journey is still valid no matter when you start. Phenomenal right there. Very, very good. Let's see what else we have here. Let's see. Peter says, morning, Slee. Good morning, brother. Let's see what's happening here. Pacers win the series with unbiased refs. Haliburton also doesn't tear his Achilles. I don't think anything official has come out on that, right? I don't think anything official has come out on his injury, but, obviously that's going to be everything here. Let's see what else we got here. Bob Myers will be introduced by Summer League. Okay, people thinking already Pelinka's gone. Pelinka's just signed a contract, so I don't think Pelinka's going anywhere, just so everybody knows. I think that's going to be a little bit of time. All right, let's kind of start focusing a little bit on the show here, and we'll go from there. Appreciate you guys throwing in comments, by the way. Please subscribe to the channel if you have not yet subscribed. All right, so that's it. OKC, NBA champs. They win an NBA championship. I will give them as much credit as possible because they had such an unbelievable regular season. They won 68 games. I will say walking into the playoffs, I did think they were beatable. And it was up to them to obviously prove that they weren't. They had to go game 7 against Denver. I think they got a kind of a free pass in the first round against Memphis, but that's what you get. If you win 68 games and you get Memphis in the first round, who's a little bit all over the place at the number 8 seed, okay, well you earn to get, if you want to call it a free pass. I don't think Minnesota was a good matchup for them, or I think Minnesota was, let me put it this way. It was a terrible matchup for Minnesota. It was a good matchup for the Oklahoma City Thunder. I thought if they had to play a healthy Warriors team, or if they had to play a Laker team, maybe the Lakers could have given them a little bit of a headache. But ultimately, when the dust settled and they got the Indiana Pacers in the finals, they didn't have to face the Boston Celtics as well. I'm not trying to take anything away from the Oklahoma City Thunder. They were clearly the best team in the NBA, and they deserve an NBA championship. They had a couple things kind of go their way. Obviously, with the Tyrese Haliburton injury yesterday, certainly that definitely helped their odds in a game 7. But they won the championship, and they're the second youngest team to ever win an NBA championship. And they got over that. I wouldn't call it a hump or anything like that, because I think they're literally just starting. Whatever the Oklahoma City Thunder are, they're literally just walking into it. I mean, just based by age, they should be a couple years away from winning their first NBA championship, just by age and experience and everything else. But that's not the case. They got their first chip, and that one's out of the way. I do think they become more dangerous moving forward. I do think the fact that I was reading something this morning that Sam Presti's got 4 first-rounders this year. They still got all those draft picks. They still got all those picks that they can figure out what they want to do with. They can still be incredibly creative this upcoming season. I think they know they probably got to get a little bit better as well. There's certain areas where they could be a little bit better. But when you win an NBA championship, I mean, you want to talk about, especially that organization, what's the pressure on the Oklahoma City Thunder moving forward? What's the pressure? There's no pressure on the Thunder anymore. And if people want to say, oh, you know what, hypothetically, let's look 10 years down the road. Let's say this is the only championship that they got. Well, they got an NBA championship. It's kind of the same thing. You could really never say anything to Denver. You can really never say anything to Milwaukee. You can really never say anything to Toronto. There's certain franchises, it's like, and I'm not telling you they're going to be content with one, because they're so well set up for the future. And we could be sitting here in 5 years and say, damn, they won 3 out of 5. That I don't think that's crazy. I mean, do I think that's going to happen? No, I think there's a lot of luck that has to come into it. What are other teams going to do? You got to be healthy. I mean, there's a lot of things that obviously got to go your way if you're going to win multiple championships. But the Thunder got a chip, and Sam Presti got a chip. And, that trio that had Russell Westbrook and James Harden and Kevin Durant, you thought, oh my gosh, these guys are going to be in the finals every single year. They only got there once together. And then we obviously know what happened as kind of years went on. Some disappointing years for the Oklahoma City Thunder. Kevin Durant leaves. But they got their chip. And now Sam Presti, as great as he has been, he added something to his resume that only a few president of basketball operations have under their belt. And you can never kind of take that away from them. So shout out to them. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, one of the more remarkable seasons you're ever going to see. I was reading these stats yesterday, but scoring champ, MVP, finals MVP, first time that's happened in 25 years since Shaq. Only 4 players have ever done that before. I think it was Shaq, Kareem, Jordan, and now Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. And Jordan did it 4 different times. So he puts himself in some unbelievable history, I guess you want to call it. Some of the moves they made in the offseason, going to sign Isaiah Hartenstein, trading for Alex Caruso, certainly those moves paid off. And the Oklahoma City Thunder are sitting back today, and who knows how great they could be for how many years. Does Sam Presti say if in a couple years from now the Lakers picked up the phone and it's this new ownership and they're calling Sam Presti and saying, listen, you got nothing to accomplish. There's nothing left to accomplish there. Why don't you come here to LA and come run the Los Angeles Lakers? Does that make a guy like Sam Presti, does it make him Does it make him feel, hey, mission accomplished here, let me go try a different challenge? Or does he kind of put his feet in and say, no, I'm good. I started here. This is where I'm going to end my career. And if that's 20 years down the road, let me see what I can do in this market and make it happen from there. I think there was a lot that I would take away from yesterday's game, but it's more about the Oklahoma City Thunder accomplishing something in that market that if you'd have told me 3 years ago the Oklahoma City Thunder are going to win an NBA championship, I'd have told you you're crazy. They won 20-something games 3 years ago. And that's why, I paid a little bit less attention. I thought if they didn't win an NBA championship this year, I didn't think it was going to be a failed season, to be honest with you. I think if you just look at their trajectory, a 20-plus win team 3 years ago. Last year, they certainly make some strides, and they get to the Western Conference Finals. This year, they're in the NBA Finals. They're still so young, but you could check that one off the list. They're NBA champs. It's impossible not to walk away from yesterday's game saying to yourself, what if? What if Tyrese Haliburton was healthy? What if Tyrese Haliburton had an opportunity to play out that game? What if the Indiana Pacers had their full squad in Game 7? It doesn't matter to play those what ifs, but I will say that I think the Indiana Pacers had a phenomenal shot of winning the NBA championship. I thought the Pacers could have easily walked into Oklahoma City last night in Game 7 if Tyrese Haliburton's healthy, and we could have been looking up at that scoreboard and with 6 minutes left to go in the fourth quarter, it's anybody's game. Frankly, that's what I was expecting. I thought they came out ready to go. Tyrese hit 3 threes early. He was going to be ultra aggressive. He kind of understood the assignment and how much better the Pacers are when he is aggressive. And, unfortunately, that just wasn't in the cards. And, a lot of people, I remember a couple games ago when Tyrese had the game, he had 0 points. I'm not trying to justify it's okay for him to have 0 points, whatever the case is. But you had a lot of media jumping all over him. What is this guy doing? He's this, that. Tyrese is a freaking winner. And that dude went out, and it didn't matter what he had to risk to go play in Game 7. It didn't matter what he had to risk to go play in Game 6. He said he wouldn't miss it for the world. And now he's probably going to have to miss. I mean, I don't want to make any assumptions on the injury. And if there was any details that happened, I don't know, over the last half hour, we'll see what they announce. But Tyrese probably risked a good part of next year because he doesn't know if he's ever going to be in a Game 7 again. So I got a ton of respect for the Indiana Pacers. And if you were a casual fan trying to watch the NBA, or maybe you didn't want to watch the NBA because, the stars weren't in it or the prestigious franchises weren't in it, I think you missed out on a great NBA Finals. And I think you missed out watching players that deserve a lot of credit for what they did over these last couple of months in this playoff run. But for me, whatever my thought was on the Indiana Pacers walking into the playoffs, by the time the playoffs were done and Game 7 finished yesterday, I had a completely different outlook on the Pacers. I had a different outlook on Carlisle, Tyrese Haliburton, Pascal Siakam, a lot of their role players, that organization. They were 48 minutes away from winning an NBA championship that no one expected. And they truly, truly deserve a lot of credit and a lot of respect. And unfortunately for them, they weren't healthy. I mean, at the end of the day, if OKC beat them in 7, it's all good. And they could have easily beat them in 7, even if Tyrese was healthy. But it's impossible not to look at last night's game. And that's one of the key pieces that you're going to remember in this playoff run. One of the key pieces that you're going to remember is, damn, what if Tyrese could have gone? But that's part of sports. And whether it's KD getting injured in the finals or Klay Thompson getting injured or Kyrie getting injured, or go down the list of all these different NBA finals that we've had or whatever sport it is, and one team just isn't fully healthy, that's part of the game. And a lot of times that could be the difference of a squad winning or not winning. But I think what was tough about it yesterday was it was Game 7. He was there. He did start off the game well. And then right in front of all of our eyes, it was done. He couldn't go. And, obviously that was a wrap from there. Okay. As promised, I did mention we're going to have Eric Pincus on the show today. So I'm really excited to have Eric on and get his thoughts, obviously, on the NBA Finals, Kevin Durant trade, Lakers offseason, all that stuff. So let me welcome in Eric Pincus here. and we will get things started. What is going on, my friend?
What's going on? Morning.
Good morning, brother. How are you?
Not too bad. Ready for a busy week.
I can't remember if I've asked you this question before. You a coffee guy? What are you doing in the morning?
Not really a coffee guy. I mean, I might get a Starbucks now and then, but not like a daily routine type of thing. Not really.
So you just use the great energy within Eric Pincus to get going in the morning.
Yeah, I can't function without a shower. Like it's
okay.
Yeah, so like a shower wakes me up, but other than that, and it doesn't have to be like a long one. Like I just gotta like even it like in an emergency, like wash my face.
Some water.
Like I gotta
just some water.
I don't know why it's been that way since long as I can remember. And then I'm a little just probably insane. So just having a little insanity keeps me.
It's good.
Keeps me moving. Yeah.
There you go. Well, I was gonna cheers some coffee to you this morning. I'll cheers to myself. It's okay.
I'll
cheers to myself.
I'll go.
Okay, so some of your takeaways from as we kind of cap off the 2024-2025 season. I know you are obviously, I'm pretty sure, enjoying this NBA Finals run. Give me some of your thoughts, your takeaways, not just from last night, but the NBA Finals in general, and then we could kind of we start turning the page from there.
Well, injuries suck. There, it was a flashback to being around Kobe when he tore his Achilles. I know what that does for a person and how devastating that is. So much love for Haliburton, what he went through, what he's going to have to go through to get back. I was really on in this series in terms of predictions. I predicted game by game five straight. I had Indy taking game 1, OKC game 2. I had who won game 3? Indy? Was it Indy won game 3? Or was
Indy
OKC?
went up 2 games to 1.
Yeah,
no,
so I had OKC.
Indy went up 2 games to 1.
Okay, right. So I had Indy going up, then I had it tied 2-2, and then I had OKC taking the lead, and then I had OKC winning in 6. So I was perfect until game 6, and then I had OKC in 6, OKC won in 7. So I feel like I kind of expected this outcome, other than it went a little longer than I thought. Almost wish now that I was more right, so that Hallie wouldn't have to go through this and just like get it done and pull the Band-Aid off. But I guess if there's a takeaway from this, when you look, like let's say you're not a Pacers fan, and you look and say, oh, this is not our year. There's no way we're going to be in the NBA Finals. Well, here you are, right? Like the Pacers were pretty lousy the first month of the season. Haliburton wasn't himself. He was kind of injured a bit, and people were saying, oh, what he did the year before was a spike, and it wasn't real. And then he went on to have arguably the best, most clutch regular season and playoffs that we've seen. I mean, certainly since I've witnessed with Kobe, that one year when he was hitting game winners like seemingly every game, Miami, Toronto, all those incredible game winners. So, the Thunder just so good, so deep. I'm not going to take away from it yet that this is like the new NBA where it's the cheap teams that win. I don't think that's realistic. I think that's just where we are this year. And if we look at the last several years, about half the teams that won the title or were in the finals were massive spenders. But even when the Lakers won in 2000, they weren't even a tax team that year. So I don't take anything huge from it in terms of like, oh, things are different now. But the West is pretty damn tough. And if you don't think your team has a shot, and the Indiana Pacers, they had a real shot, then it gives you a little bit of hope for the future.
Yeah, I kind of curious which way I want to go with this, because I think what you said was, if you don't think your team has a shot, I think there is it's got to be a little bit of clarity for some of these teams in the Western Conference. Rockets just obviously acquired Kevin Durant. We're going to see what the Warriors and the Lakers and Denver and the Clippers and Minnesota and some of these other teams, how they kind of retool their team outside of the Oklahoma City Thunder. San Antonio seems like they're only going to get better. Are teams being honest with themselves if they think 10, 11 teams can compete in the Western Conference, or is it a much smaller number? I do have I remember Windhorst saying something that 13 teams are going to be competing for a playoff spot, something along those lines. Do you think that there's some front offices there that should recalibrate in regards to thinking now's the time to buy and now's the time to sell?
Right. It's two different points that are both valid. Like from the point of view of just being healthy and getting there, and then once you're there, you have a shot. Yeah, if you're in the play-in, you can go all the way and win a title, depending on injuries and health. Haliburton going down, you start going through the list of players who got hurt along the way, and even the miraculous, like Aaron Gordon put back, at the buzzer dunk that I was witness to, where that was the series. Like, it was over right then and there. And yeah, the Clippers should have been able to, from a point of view, win that anyway, but it just took the wind out of their sails. So there's that randomness of health and of, just the moment, and you have to play the games. So there is that point of view of, like, if you're the Blazers and you're sick of not making the playoffs and you want to push it in and go a little harder to make the playoffs, plus you're trying to sell the team, so making the playoffs would be good for that, right? Then yeah, go for it. But don't go for it to the extent, which is the second part of your question, where you're being unrealistic, where you're over investing in a mediocre product and tying yourself down to something that's going to be long-term good enough to make the playoffs, but not good enough to actually compete unless everything exactly goes right. So there's each team has their own point of view. Like, you're the Lakers and you have to make decisions around Luka Doncic and LeBron James. Like, how long is LeBron, and is he going to be with the Lakers for so long? And then when do you really focus on building around Luka? And then you go team by team. You have the same question with Kawhi Leonard. Like, how long are the Clippers going to be built around Kawhi Leonard? So those decisions are going to determine how long you pay James Harden and what other moves you make. If Norm Powell wants an extension and you can't come to terms because he wants like 3-4 years, and you're only building around this 2-year window, it's a different approach. Same with the Warriors, right? Like, they've got this 2-year window in theory with Steph and Jimmy and Dre, and now Kuminga wants a big contract. So, like, you go team by team, and that's where I think that honesty that you're really saying is vital, like that self-awareness. And to be honest, a lot of teams aren't self-aware. I don't know that the Suns have been self-aware upon the recent purchase by Matt Ishbia, and I'm not criticizing him. He's coming in, had a vision, pushed to this point. That vision hasn't been realized, and now they're trading KD, and they basically netted a loss in the whole transaction, right? They sent more out for KD, didn't get the production that they wanted in terms of wins, sold out on the contract for less than what they got it for. So you go team by team, and like, yeah, the Thunder are on top, and that's it, right? Like, who else can say that? The Celtics, who won last year, Tatum's out for the year. Hallie, the best team in the East, probably out for the full year as well. So it's a weird time, but it's a great time to be an NBA fan, great time to be in the NBA. Opportunity is there, and you just have to be realistic if you're a team on how far to go.
I'm curious to get your thoughts. I'm going to go back to the finals here real quick. Well, specifically on the Oklahoma City Thunder. So they accomplished what they did. They won 68 games. I think the position that they're in, it just feels like in your experience around the NBA and your experience around sports, when a team wins a championship, I'm sure the fact that they got one under their belt, it should make it a little bit easier in the sense of mentally. I'm not telling you that the path's going to get any easier, the roster, any of that stuff, but you don't have to worry about it. Getting a championship should help them with their second championship and whatever it is moving forward. We got a long way to go before next season starts. We don't know what a lot of these rosters look like. The Oklahoma City Thunder, on paper, it's like 68 wins. They won an NBA championship. Oh my gosh. And by the way, Presti's got 4 picks, 4 first rounders this upcoming draft, and we'll see what else they do. I will also say that I thought they were beatable. I thought this year, watching them, and I thought watching them through the playoff run, it's not a team that I thought, and it shouldn't be. It's not like it's the KD Warriors or something like that. They're young. They're still figuring things out. They went to 2 Game 7s, which clearly says they're beatable. As you look at the rest of the West and how they rebuild and how they look specifically against the Oklahoma City Thunder, how do you think the rest of the West matches up to just that team?
Well, You're right. Like there's a certain amount of understanding. You see Alex Caruso in these moments. He's won before, so there's a familiarity of the moment. So Hallie hits a bunch of threes early. You're getting matched by Alex Caruso, who's hitting threes to keep the score basically tied. And Alex is not really an offensive player, but well, he's okay. He's not like a top tier offensive player, top tier defensive player. But there is a certain understanding. Now, the most recent results are that no one repeats. Like the last handful of years, 7 years or so, no one's repeating. So if the trend holds, then the Thunder aren't going to win next year. And if that's the case, then you can beat them. And you're right. Of course, they're beatable. Health is an issue. As always, Chet Holmgren having to stay healthy has been the biggest issue in his career. Their team's going to get a lot more expensive because Jalen Williams and Chet are about to get paid. I would expect them both to get the max. And then if Jalen Williams, he might even get a higher than 25%. He might get an extra max. He's not quite eligible yet, but they're going to have to pay these guys. And the moment you don't pay them, let's say you pay Jalen more than Chet or Chet more than Jalen, now maybe you start to lose a little bit of that chemistry, which is such a vital part of this team. And then they're going to max out Shea, presumably a supermax this summer as well. And so the team is super expensive, and they're going to have to, it's not expensive yet, but it's getting super expensive. So by 26, 27, not this coming year, now it starts to get heavy and they have to start to pick it apart. So you can beat them because they are vulnerable, because all teams are. I think there are times where it's like the offense dies if they're not hitting threes, and then it's really just like ISO Shea, ISO Jalen Williams trying to get those individual scores off. And we've seen Nembhard do a great job defensively. Neesmith, like you need the defense, you need the size. I think teams are taking away that having the ability and the luxury to go double big is valuable in this league. So I think teams will look at that and say, okay, I mean, even the Timberwolves were going kind of double big because you have like Nas, Randall, and Gobert. Lakers went the other direction. Will go zero big, which is a choice. But like, I think being able to go small is huge. Like, you have to play small, and that was one of the things that the Thunder even did when they took Siakam off the Pacers. Now the Thunder are going super small. So
and they had the options. I think that was the beauty with their roster, right? However we want to play, we can play. Where you use the Lakers as an example, they basically had one way to play. There was no counter. Right. There was no plan B or C.
And that can work. And we saw it work for the Lakers in the regular season, where they had a great run, and their defense was among the top in the league for a stretch. And Jackson Hayes was playing out of his mind, but there are matchups where that doesn't work. And so you're going to lose a game or two in the regular season, but hey, you may play those matchups and one of those guys doesn't even play. Like if you play, randomly, let's say you play the Timberwolves and Randall's out a game or Gobert's out a game, it doesn't tell you anything. Regular season's regular season. It's when you get to a playoff matchup where those flaws are magnified, and against a good team and a good coach, they're going to hit you in those flaws. I think basketball's compounding, and a good example is like the Pistons weren't anything last year among the bottom teams, and then they're a playoff team this year. They got a little better. Like Malik Beasley, Tim Hardaway Jr. is not why a team is suddenly a playoff team, but because of a team desperate for shooting, getting two shooters, the compounding this, like if you add a center who can catch a lob and defend to last year, Lakers can play very differently. They had one, but it didn't work out with Mark Williams, right? Because the trade didn't work out. So I guess it kind of goes back to your other question. The earlier question is that, like, to me, basketball, it's if you need to add 10 to your team, like just 10 units, adding 2 or 3 compound to each other, you might get to 10 by just adding a couple of 2 threes, and suddenly you're at 10, even though you didn't realize it. The math doesn't work like linearly. Yeah. It doesn't work like straight up. You just have to add the right pieces in the right ways. And now Luka's better because you're able to play Luka's style. Or you just go team by team. If you have a wing defender on a team, suddenly they're a better team because suddenly they're not getting killed by a point of attack guard. There's so many little things that you get exploited for in the playoffs. But health is the most important thing. And so there, the NBA is it's about attrition. It's about who stays the healthiest, not just at the throughout, but at the right time. And the Thunder have that kind of depth where they can really offset a lot of that. But there's still a lot of vulnerability, and I think we should have a good offseason, good draft coming up, good free agent period, some trades, and we'll get a chance to see how they reshuffle that deck.
I want to get your thoughts on a couple things here. Certainly want to get your thoughts on the KD trade to Houston, Lakers offseason and everything else. But obviously last week, the big news in the NBA was the ownership change and majority ownership going to Mark Walter and his group, and obviously the owner of the Dodgers. Can you just, from your perspective, just how significant do you think that news was last week? And what are areas that you think an ownership group like that seems like they have very, very, very deep pockets? How will this kind of reshape the Lakers, and what are the areas that you think the Lakers can improve on, knowing that, yeah, there is a salary cap, but there is also other ways that you can improve your team, your roster, your organization that you think new ownership will have an impact on?
Sure. Obviously, it's huge news for Laker fans, Lakers. I mean, I grew up in LA, and I mean, yes, I was alive before Dr. Buss. I'm showing my age a little bit, before Dr. Buss bought the team, but I was very, very, very young. And so, you just grow up in LA. If you're fortunate enough to grow up as a kid during the Magic Kareem era, that's an incredible thing. And then to go through the Nick Van Exel era all the way to Shaq Kobe, and then Kobe Powell, and then LeBron and Luka now.
You forgot Eddie Jones. I mean, Nick Van Exel.
Oh, well, Eddie, yeah.
You got to mention Eddie here, okay?
Eddie was, yeah.
That was like the password for my email address for years, okay?
Those were great times. All of that was under the Buss family. And it is a massive change. It's equally not like a huge change, because they still will own as a family 17-18%. We don't know the exact number, but in that range.
Yeah.
And Jeannie will stay on as the governor, which is the final say in all things as far as the NBA is concerned. When it comes to when the Lakers vote on anything in some sort of team meeting, it's Jeannie who's going to vote. Now, does this change how she votes? Does it change the personality of the team? The way these things tend to work is that immediately there's not a huge change. Within a year, there's very minor change, and then you start to get to 18 months, 2 years, and things really start to shift. And like the Lakers next year could win it all and nothing changes, or they could have a bad year and maybe it ushers more significant change more quickly. Some of this will be up to Jeannie and how long she wants to do this. She doesn't have to do it. There's a financial windfall for the family members. It was a trust. It is a trust that owns the Lakers. And so they've been getting a salary, but they haven't been rolling in the Lakers' money, because that's now how it's set up. Now they get to roll in some of that money as a family. How does that change their situation? So in terms of how it can change, Jeannie ran it a certain way. She kept a very tight-knit circle of people that she had relationships with, that she trusted.
Sure.
So that would be Linda Rambis, who's been her partner for 30, 40 years. Her husband, former Laker, Kurt Rambis, and then the general manager, top executive, Rob Pelinka, who she had the relationship with through Kobe. So there's always been sort of a tight-knit, closed circle of how they run the team. And the way that Rob has run the team is he hasn't looked to have a big staff, because they don't, from their point of view, they don't need 5-6 departments of people with 5-6 people in each department, 25, 30 people helping to make decisions. That's how the Clippers run a little bit, not exactly, but roughly. They have a huge analytics department. They have a huge strategy department that goes through the cap. They have scouts everywhere. Hell, I mean, the Thunder, smaller organization, I see their scouts all over the place. I know a ton of people with the Thunder. People like, who do you root for? There's a point where I root for your friends, and I have a lot of friends that they're not people I go and hang out with at family events, but when I see them, it's great to see them. We catch up, we have a good time, maybe get a drink at a hotel bar or something like that. that the Lakers aren't they're just not like that. They don't have a pro personnel department. They don't have the layers and layers that the Clippers have. Now, if you're a Laker fan and you hate the Clippers, you're going to point at the Clippers and you're going to say, well, so what? What have they done?
Sure.
Right? Like, they didn't win a title in the last, in the Ballmer era. They've overinvested in the Paul George trade that just basically became one of the worst trades in NBA history. It was always one of the worst trades in NBA history. Now it's officially one of the worst trades in NBA history, right? Now that Thunder have won a title. So I'm not saying that there's a right or wrong way to build a team, because it's like there are a lot of teams that Denver didn't have a gigantic staff in doing what they did to win. The Thunder do have a larger staff than their market dictates. So it's stylistic. The Dodgers, to bring it back to your question, they have followed the path, and I'm not a baseball guy, but they followed the path of closer to what the Clippers are in terms of investment, in terms of going out and spending, which of course, very different sport, but not just spending on roster, which they do, but also on the infrastructure. So
their scouting,
theory,
their farm system,
yes.
they pay close attention. And by the way, there are a lot of franchises that have such deep pockets that maybe they spend less attention towards those details, and that's not the Dodgers. And listen, I'll be the first one to tell you, Dodgers spend money, but they're also spending on areas. They're cropping their own players. There is a lot that they're spending in the background that maybe people aren't noticing.
Yeah, and look, that's something I was pitching to the Lakers through writing and whatnot, is that, and this is not 23, this is like closer to 2017 and even before, when the rules change every 6-7 years or so. I was saying, publicly and whatever, that the Lakers don't need to operate like a small market in terms of like watching the dollars and that stuff. Like, some small markets, they can't pay tax. So I'm not talking about that. They needed to operate like a small market, in that they needed to pay attention to the details on a deeper level, like the small markets, like the Thunder have, right? Where they've been making every small move be the right move, and they add up. And to me, the Lakers haven't done that. They've lost on the margins left and right. That's my opinion. They may disagree. I can show, like, hey, Alex Caruso winning a title. I knew he wasn't coming back before that. I was reporting, people call me crazy and that I was an idiot when I was warning Laker fans. I'm hearing they're not going to bring Alex Caruso back. I hear they want to go more offense. They don't think he brings enough. They think his defense, this is a team that defends but can't score. Remember the Lakers in 2000, couldn't hit shots, dominated the paint. Everyone was going with threes. Lakers weren't hitting threes. They just played defense, were tough, and scored in the paint, and they won a title. And then the next year they got hurt and, didn't work out. They overcorrected and went, we need more offense. And so I was warning, they're not going to bring back Caruso. They messed up on the margins with Zubats and so we can make a long list.
Sure.
But it's also like Austin Reaves and THT and all these guys where at the time they were giving them 2-year deals when they had it within their power to give them 3-year deals. So both Austin and THT got paid a year earlier than all of their contemporaries. And then they get to the next contract earlier. So THT didn't live up to that money. Austin lived up to that money, but now he's not in a position where they can even extend him, because an extension starts at 20 and
his market value is going to be
his market value is at least 30. And so like there are things that I don't like with how they've operated. And then, the Laker fan might not want to hear any criticism and say, well, they won a title and they got Luka and they're doing fine. And if you believe that, great, that's fine. But I feel like they've left money on the table by not being diligent about the details. That brings in the Dodgers, who have not been that. They've been minding the details well. If there's a culture shift I would like to see, it's not operate like a small market team, but it's operate with that small market awareness of details, where like you can't afford in a small market. Pacers can't afford to screw things up because that's how they function. Lakers can afford, because they're the Lakers. They're going to get LeBron. You're going to get somehow Luka. You're going to get Anthony Davis's, and you're going to get these stars when they come. But it would also be nice to bolster that. And then just to wrap that up is that, no, it is a closed system. The NBA does not have a hard cap. It has an optional hard cap. It's a soft cap. You could spend as much as you want. The Suns are following that path of just spend. It's not working out for them, because that's not how the system is designed. You can keep spending, but the more you spend, the fewer tools you have to do so. And so you put yourself in a position where you're paying a lot of money for keeping the exact same team together, which is great if you have the best team in the league. But if you don't, like the Warriors, when the Warriors had the best team in the league with, as you said, KD and whatnot, Steph, Clay, all that, yeah, they spent beyond any other team. But they could because they had those guys. Unless you have those guys and you're just keeping this team together, well, yeah, like Lakers, if you get to the point where you have all the guys you need for 3, 4, or 5 years, this is an ownership group that's willing to go in, theoretically, go deep into the tax to pay for it to keep it together. That hasn't been the Genie Rob Pelinka problem dating back to that 2000 title and on, is that if they had the right group, they traded it all for Russell Westbrook, and then they had to unwind the Russell Westbrook. And now here we are looking at a team that doesn't even have a center. And how do you get a center? Well, you can't just go spend $30 million on Miles Turner and Naz Reid. They can spend $6 million, which can get them Clint Capella maybe, which is fine. But Clint he doesn't have great hands. There was a point he was finishing at like 65% of the basket or higher or whatever. Now it's dropping. He's not as good as he was. So you get what you pay for. And so you can't just say, oh, Lakers will spend now. They were spending. They were one of the top 7 teams in the league the last, 8 years in spending.
I want to point one thing out. But first off, you said that. I like what you said, and I think hey, you should have a mentality a little, even though you're a bigger market, there are some things you could take away from what small markets are doing, and you should incorporate that. I don't even know if that's a big market, small market thing. I think it's just good business, right? Like you could have, I think some of the best corporations around, you could look at them, and I don't think they don't know where their money is going. And we have so much money coming in, we're not even paying attention. I think the best corporations are the ones where it's like, not only do we have so much money coming in, we know where every dollar is going, and we're investing it very wisely. And I do think that's going to be over time. It's not going to happen tonight. It's not going to happen tomorrow. I think over time, I think the new ownership will have that type of approach. Because if you look at their track record, and you can go to, the Guggenheim Group, and you could see how they do business. That's just how they do business. So I do feel like they'll incorporate that into the Lakers, which will be, obviously very beneficial. The other thing that you mentioned when you kind of started comping different players and everything else, you mentioned Austin Reaves, and I don't know how much you're hearing from any of the content that you put out or shows that you go on or things that you write, pieces that you write. Have you been surprised how I feel like the noise has been very loud about moving Austin Reaves from at least a fan perspective because of so many needs that the Lakers have, and maybe the backcourt between Luka and Austin Reaves? I don't think I've ever asked you this. What's your take on Reaves and his future with the Lakers, and what do you think the Lakers should do with him?
Well, the difference I perceive is that there was a time where Austin was being discussed in this circle, like the fan circle, the podcast circle, the media circle. But the responses that I'd gotten from like team, either from the team directly or from other teams that were talking, I can, someone with a team is less likely to talk about their team, but they're likely to gossip about another team. So just talking to other teams about the Lakers in years past, it would be like, nah, I mean, like I've heard that Genie loves Austin. There's no way they're going to move him. It's always been like a no. I haven't gotten that same level of pushback in discussing Austin this summer. Like I don't hear like, no, like there's no way Genie's ever going to move Austin. I'm not hearing that same level. Does that mean it's changed? No, it doesn't mean it's changed. It might be that maybe the Lakers are more focused on the sale and they haven't been putting out the same messaging. But my understanding is that there's concern about whether they can afford him, and that there's also the should question, right? Where before they got Luka, it was just they didn't have anyone else outside of LeBron who can create offense, right? Like AD was a scorer, but he was an inside scorer who needed the ball. Sure. You need someone to get him the ball where he can do it. So he's a finisher and an incredible one. That's not denigrating him. He's not like a point forward like how LeBron is going to get everybody shots. AD can get shots out of being a big man, which is great in and of itself, but it's different. Now they have Luka, who is a preeminent shot creator for himself, for others. And now you have this in-between stage where you have LeBron, who is also that, but you don't know how long LeBron is going to be around. I don't think he knows. I don't think the team knows. It feels like he's back for at least this year, maybe opting in or opting out and re-signing for maybe 2 more years, this year and next, with another player option, or most he could do is a 3-year deal. So the options are between 0 and 3. I don't think 0 is on the table. I think he's back. I don't think anyone thinks he's not back. So 1 to 2 is probably where we end up. Those questions are really significant because, as great as LeBron was defensively within a role, there were aspects where he was not great defensively. Like LeBron does, like in the half court, LeBron is not going to be getting all the way across the court, doing the kind of stuff like Lou Dort or whatever was doing the other day. Alex,
sure.
Like he does what he does well. Undeniably, there are things he does well, but there are liabilities with LeBron and foot speed and willingness to get across
40.
the court. Right. And there are limitations inherent in how Luka plays defense. I thought that regular season he played as hard as I've seen him play defense. I think he's going to get targeted in the playoffs, and that's okay. You can scheme for that. You could scheme for Haliburton, who is getting targeted. Mm-hmm. You could scheme for Steph Curry,
sure,
where he gets targeted. It gets a lot harder when you have 2 guys who can get targeted, and then if you have 3 guys who can be targeted, because LeBron can be targeted not directly, but in terms of ball movement, right? How do you defend with LeBron, Luka, and Austin? Because Austin does have things he does do well on defense, but he also has some liabilities too. He's not physically imposing. He does fight hard, and he's going to be in the right position. He's going to be where he's supposed to be, but you can physically overpower him. Not myself, but an NBA player of a certain size. So I think that with no center protecting the rim, and asking Dorian Finney-Smith and like Rui, who's also a limited defender, does some things really well. Vanderbilt, who's limited offensively. Vincent, who's a good defender, but also limited in height. Like you start going through and there's just like, how do you build this team around Austin, Luka, and LeBron? Now, if you say LeBron's gone and you're putting all those resources into athletes with size and ability to defend, an incredible roster of athletes around Austin and Luka, you could probably build something that would work, but you don't have that right now because you're putting that $50-something million into LeBron. So I think that's really the question. If you're saying no matter what, we're letting LeBron finish his career here, and if no matter what, the Lakers are going to do whatever they can to keep Luka here, and if you say that combination isn't going to work with that investment with Austin, then maybe you have to plug in those holes somewhere else. I will say that, like, because of his contract situation, his value may not be as high as someone like Desmond Bane, where I could argue I like Austin more as a player than Desmond Bane. But Desmond is under contract. It's a little inflated. But if you trade for Austin, let's say you're the Hornets. I'm just making up a random team, no aggregation. That's just 1 out of 30 teams. And they trade for Austin Reaves. And then he's like, well, I won't commit. And then they trade for him, and then he leaves as a free agent in 26 next year, when a lot of teams this year, the Nets have cap room, no one else, kind of, right? Like other teams can trade to it. The Grizzlies might have it, but use it on Jaren Jackson Jr. Basically, there's no cap room, and we will see maybe the Pistons trade to get cap room. But as of right now, only one team, 2026 rather, teams do project to have cap room. Maybe 5, 8, I don't know the number. We won't know the number for some time, but we'll know the number at some point. And so if you trade for Austin and he doesn't commit and you lose him, then you wasted your time, and that diminishes his trade value for the Lakers, because, you know, unless Austin and his people are saying, yes, we commit, we'll re-sign no matter what, and they'll say, we'll max you out. Sure, if a team's maxing him out, but now you're trading for Austin Reaves that you are committing to max out. Is he a max guy? And does that diminish the value you get in return for the Lakers? So they're in a little bit of a tricky spot. He's their best piece when it comes to a trade piece, his contract, but he's also really valuable and hard to replace. I could argue, you're spinning wheels with LeBron. You can't build the winner for whatever the Luka era is going to be with LeBron, unless you tell me that LeBron's going to play another 4 or 5 years and be at the level where he can help bring a ring, then you're kind of spinning in place and in this investment. That said, like had the center, they might have won last year. I'm not saying that they go ahead.
I'll say this, Eric. I think there's a lot of truth to what you just said right there in regards to, I've said this before. I have a difficult time thinking you can build a contender and you can build around Luka for a contender with LeBron still on the roster. And it's not a shot at LeBron. You know, I'll see some people say, oh, you're just hating on LeBron. The dude's 40. He's about to be 41. What he's doing at this stage of his career is unheard of. But if you're going to take up that much money, $50+ million to go towards LeBron, and you're not 100% sure what he's going to bring you this upcoming season or some of the deficiencies that he has, it's just kind of the reality. I have a difficult time thinking that you could accomplish both, that you can build a contender and still have LeBron on your roster, or completely build around Luka until LeBron's no longer on the roster.
Right.
So
and
we'll see how that obviously.
I don't know how new ownership doesn't fix this issue. You know what I'm saying? Like deeper pockets doesn't fix it. The second apron is kind of the line that really you can't really spend over. Now you can, but you have limited tools. Let's say that it's just over 200 this next year. Let's say it's 200 exactly, and let's say that LeBron's making 50 million exactly. He's making 25% of the budget, right? Like, how do you build around that when one is, if that's the player that you're building around as your core? Of course, you can do that. But if you're putting in 25% of your budget into a guy who's really only here for 1 or 2 more years, maybe 3, and isn't the guy who's going to get you to the next title, he might be, again, like if they had a center, if they were healthy, there's always the shot that the Lakers could have got matched up with the Thunder and beat the Thunder. It's possible. But it's the difference between pocket aces versus going after an inside straight draw. It's like you got the goods and you're building around the goods, or you kind of sort of maybe get the goods if you get the exact right cards in the exact right time. And that's like the difference. Right now the Lakers they have a shot, but it might cost them Austin Reaves because you've got so much in LeBron. And I'm not saying to get rid of LeBron. I'm just saying like it's
just the reality. This is the reality.
He's
his situation is very, very, very unique. He is one of the greatest players to ever play the game. He's still playing at a high level. He's box office every single night, and he's also old. I mean, that's just that. I think that there's a reality to the situation, and I think with new ownership, and I think with LeBron, I think if you told me that, hey, the next couple of years, it's going to have to look like a perfect roster and a perfect scenario to actually compete for a championship, that's probably more likely than, hey, this team looks great and they're the favorites going in. Like I don't know if favorites going in happens over these next 2 years or so, unless they're wildly creative and things just kind of go their way.
Sure. And like we have the draft this week, and they have a non-nuclear option of like trading Dalton Connect. They have some draft compensation. The risk is like if you put it into something now, is it just a Band-Aid, or is it like sustainable over a long period of time? So the easiest move for the Lakers when it comes to financially would be trying to get like Walker Kessler. And I say his name because he makes the same money roughly as Connect. So if you're saying, go after Miles Turner, or like find a way to bring in like a 20 something $million player, that's where it's challenging. That's why Mark Williams worked. It didn't work out because of his physical, and everyone in the NBA scope knew that like he had bad reputation when it came to health. But he's $6 million this coming season. So the logic of going after a cheap one, which basically means a young one, those are not bad things. Like getting a young center to pair with Luka for the next 3, 4, 5, 6 years that can blossom and grow, that right now is cheap, but then you have to pay when the time comes within a year or two. I get it. That makes sense, right? Like Kessler, if you get him, he's not cheap for long,
sure,
but he's probably going to be in the $19-20 million range once you pay him. maybe he wants 25 or something like that. If he doesn't ask for too much, Utah doesn't trade him. It has to be him asking for too much and Utah saying, oh, we're not going to pay that guy that much. Let's trade him. Let's go draft Malawak in the draft at 5, right? Like those are the kind of pathways that could happen in a matter of days. So the Lakers could solve these issues, but the other teams understand all of the conversation we're having right now about this boxed-in situation for the Lakers. They're happy to give the Lakers a way out, but they need to profit off of it. And when you profit off of the Lakers, and now you're taking away the resources they have to do other things. So if the draft comp goes for Walker Kessler, who is good, not elite, but he's a very good defender at the rim, but can he switch? Like, is he a big enough of a lob threat? Is he athletic enough? These are all questions that they would have to evaluate. Not at $4 million, but at the next contract and the resources you gave up. So it's if he's 20 a year and then you gave up another first, the only other first they really have to give.
Sure.
Now can you? But
he better be the guy.
And is LeBron, because LeBron got hurt like in the playoffs, we didn't see it in the same level because they just lost the game and it was the last game. But had the Lakers won that game, LeBron wouldn't have played the rest of the playoffs probably because of the knee injury, the MCL. Of the CLs that you want to sprain, the M is the one that you want to sprain, right? It's like the one that you can get over without surgery. You can recover from it maybe in weeks, maybe in a couple of months. But not in 2 days. Right. Like he was done. And so anyway.
Let me ask you this, and I know you've been very kind with your time here, but I'm curious to just get your opinion on this. What's a great offseason for the Lakers that you feel like is also realistic? So just kind of looking at some of their needs, obviously looking at the challenges that they're going to have. How would you define, hey, that was a really good offseason for the Lakers, and we're not throwing pie in the sky here as it's not realistic?
Right. So they need a starting center who can play big. They probably should bring back Jackson Hayes because, number one, he was very good in his role. You just know that it's a limited role. And number two,
come off the bench.
Yeah, but he's also with WME, same agent as Luka, so there is a certain amount of business to take care of. I'm fine with them bringing back Jackson. He's a good dude. He's good in the locker room. But then you probably need one more center. Like they should have 3 centers, not 1 center. You need 3 because there are injuries. And I'm not talking like Alex Len. I'm saying guys that you can rely on. Now you have Trey Jemison as a 2-way that can help. But realistically, they need 3 playable centers. They are fine at forward for the most part, but they need defense in the backcourt. And I like what Gabe does defensively, but you need kind of a bigger, better version offensively. And if you can't get that, keep Gabe and supplement to it. I think you probably need if they can upgrade Vanderbilt, because I think he's such a one-way player. I think that there's limits to what he can do in the playoffs because they really struggle to score. That's not a definitive thing because if you have enough shooting around him. So and then really it's resolve the Austin Reaves question. Like you can't pay him because the money doesn't work right now. But if you're going to cash him out, it's got to be for an example would be, and I don't think this is a realistic one. Like if you can get a Bam Adebayo type for an Austin Reaves, I don't think you can, but that's if you're saying, oh, trade Austin Reaves for Nicholas Claxton, I'm saying, I don't think Nicholas Claxton is the solution. Like Nicholas Claxton is smaller and lighter than Jackson Hayes, right? He's about an inch shorter and he weighs 5 pounds lighter. Now, if you say, oh, but he's better. Okay. If he's better, that's fine. But is he, if Hayes is $5 million, are you paying 5 times that to get somebody who's a little better but is actually smaller? And then what do you give up? Because they only have so many resources to match those salaries. If you're giving up a Maxey or a Gabe Vincent or a Vanderbilt or whatever, that money is irreplaceable. Now you've got it all in one guy, as opposed to being able to spread that money around into other pieces, which is the reality. So I would like to see depth. And they weren't that far off. And it goes back to your original question as we kind of wrap up. Like the Pacers, who knew, right? Like who knew that they weren't that far off last year. They got to the conference final. Like they were great last year, and haven't even been on anyone's radar in the last last few years. Suddenly, they're one of the best teams. Like the margins aren't as huge as people want. Someone comes in, oh, Lakers are a million years from winning. No, they're not. They're close. It's not, oh, you need some gigantic, like, oh, you need to go trade for Giannis, right? Like, they're not far off, because in basketball, you're not far off. You just have to be healthy. You just have to be, the right pieces. You can't go into a postseason with no center. Like, how are you going to win like that? And I could see how they could win some games, maybe even a series, but they weren't going to win a title. So I think there's reason for Laker fans to be optimistic, but they are in a difficult spot because they don't have this long list of draft picks or movable pieces that are overwhelmingly going to help them just, boom, we're going to go trade and get all of our needs met. It's going to be finding, that needle just through the right decisions, and maybe new ownership makes that easier. As far as I can tell, things don't change in the next week. They still operate the same way they've operated probably for at least a year, 18 months. Sure. So if you're expecting it to be different in the next week or in free agency, I don't think it's going to be that different, good or bad.
Eric, I appreciate the time. Okay, just a quick thumbs up or thumbs down. KD to Houston.
Sure. Thumbs up. They didn't give up enough. They didn't give up too much at all. For the Suns, whatever. Like, I don't know how to help you there, but I like Jalen Green more than others, but you don't need Jalen Green and Booker and Beal. But teams are allowed to make more than one trade. So let's see what the Suns do.
All right, brother. Hey, thank you very much for the time, brother. I appreciate it. That was you should have cut me off 15 minutes ago. Thank you, man.
No, all good.
Thank you, Eric. All right, that is Eric Pincus right there. Very, very kind with his time there, making it happen. All right, great stuff. Good stuff from him. I enjoy his perspective on a lot of these things, and a lot of topics I want to get into. I was like, all right, let me talk to Eric about it and get his thoughts and opinion on it. Quick shout out here. I want to talk about Brad Wallace and the Wallace firm. Shout out to them. Shout out to his whole team out there supporting the channel. If you are in a situation, I hope you're never in a situation, serious injury, wrongful death case, there's only one team to go to, and that's Brad Wallace and his team over at the Wallace firm. Known Brad Wallace for about 5 years now. He was with me when I was at 710 ESPN. He was advertising there, actually specifically picked me out and said, yep, I'd like that guy I want to partner with that guy. And even when I left 710 ESPN, he's still obviously here with me, supporting the channel here on YouTube with me. More importantly than any of that stuff, like I said, if you're in a situation where a serious injury, wrongful death case, it's a family member, it's yourself, whatever the case is, he's the best in the business when it comes to injury attorneys. You drive around Southern California, you see billboards everywhere. You see, let's just put it this way. There's a lot of injury attorneys that are trying to get your attention. He's not going to be as loud as everybody else, but he's more effective than everybody else. And that I can tell you, and I can tell you firsthand. The website to go to is wallacewins.com/Sliwa, wallacewins.com/Sliwa. You can fill out and get a free consultation if you just want to kind of, hey, this is a daunting process. I'm not sure how this works. Talk to Brad Wallace and the Wallace firm, and they'll guide you in the right direction. I can send a personal email if you want, make a personal introduction to Brad Wallace as well. So something to keep in mind. wallacewins.com/Sliwa, wallacewins.com/Sliwa. Okay. Still a lot of other things to get into. We're definitely going to go over an hour today. One of the things that I have not really got a chance, let me see what we got here. I haven't really got a chance to look at a lot of these comments here, so I'm going to do so here in just a second. Philippe says, who would you trade Reaves for? Listen, and I'm not telling you this is going to happen because I don't think other teams are going to do it, but I think we're trying to figure out what is the right price for Austin Reaves. Because if you told me you're trading Austin Reaves and you got Nick Claxton back, or if you got Gafford back, I would tell you that I think Austin Reaves is worth more. And if you told me you trade Austin Reaves and you want to try to get Bam Adebayo, like we were just talking about with Eric Pincus, I think Bam Adebayo was worth more than Austin Reaves. So what is that next caliber of centers that's in between Nick Claxton and in between Bam Adebayo? I think that's where Austin Reaves falls. So that's going to obviously be up to the front office to try to figure out. And I think it's a fair question. I think the way Eric was explaining it as well is why he thought there's more value in Desmond Bane is because he's under contract. He's under contract. There's no surprises here. One of the, obviously the realities with Austin Reaves is if you trade for him, you're going to be paying him $30+ million. And you also got to guarantee that he wants to stay with your franchise and with your team. And if you're the Lakers, you're weighing, hey, do I want Austin Reaves and Luka Doncic in the backcourt for the next 5 years? All fair questions, all completely fair questions. Thank you, Philippe, for the super here. So you've got to moderate this chat. Well, let me say this. If there are people in the chat that are wildly disrespectful or they're saying things that don't add to the channel, then just tell me in the chat and I'll put them on timeout or I'll ban them or whatever the case is. I want the chat to be a healthy chat. I'm not trying to, and I also don't want to police people like, you guys are children because you guys aren't children. But if I got to do something, then I'll do it. So just tell me and I'll make it happen. And I hope anybody that's in the chat keeps that in mind, that we want the chat to be a place that's helping the channel and helping the show, not something taken away from it. OKC wasn't winning Game 7 without Tyrese Haliburton going down. I got a lot of people saying that. We'll never know. And that's a reality. We'll literally never know if that was the case or not. Congrats to OKC, team with the best record and MVP. HH with a super here. Thank you, brother. I appreciate that very much. Very, very kind of you. Jason says, but Slee loves Capella. I like him at 5.7. I definitely like him at 5.7. I'm not telling you go give Clint Capella as your starting center and he's playing 30 minutes a night. But if Clint Capella is your backup center, I'm okay with that. I think, our version of Clint Capella just depends on the value that we see him at. Okay, a couple other things here that I'm just going to get into here real quick. The KD trade to the Rockets, I did a video on that yesterday. And, I remember I put out there on the title that I thought the worst case scenario for the Western Conference and for the Lakers was KD to go to the Rockets. I just think that's a good fit. I do believe, I feel Ime Udoka is going to know what to do. I think they're going to surround Kevin Durant with defenders, guys that can rebound, guys that can play defense, veterans, smart guys. And I think they'll just make KD's life easier because they're just going to ask KD to be KD. So I thought that trade that went down yesterday, would have loved to see him go in Miami, but obviously that's not the case. I thought that was a really, really, really nice move for the Houston Rockets. We'll see what happens from here. Some people disagreed. Some people didn't think thought I was being overly dramatic, that was the worst case scenario. I think he's going to fit well with Houston because Houston does have a proper coach. It does have a system. It feels like that team knows what they're doing. It feels like they have an identity, and KD, I think, is going to fill a void that they certainly need. Okay, I mentioned this, and I put this in my rundown. I'm going to go probably a little bit faster here just because we're already almost at $1.10 here. They did the way too early power rankings on ESPN. Listen, this is common. People just do this just because obviously the season just ended. The offseason is going to come and they're going to re-rank everybody based off of, what moves everybody makes. The Oklahoma City Thunder are number 1 in the rankings. No surprise. Kind of interesting that they put Minnesota at number 2, Denver at number 3, Cleveland at number 4, Houston at number 5, and they put the Pacers at number 6. The Lakers, they have them at number 9. So they have the Lakers coming into this season as the number 9 best team in the NBA. It doesn't mean anything. It doesn't matter. Lakers draft picks, obviously, they only have the number 55 pick. They got a lot of things that they're going to need to figure out. Are you keeping Rui, Gabe Vincent, Maxi Kleba? They're all expiring contracts. Are you keeping Austin Reaves? Are you trading him? What are you doing with Dalton Connect in that first rounder, 2029 and 2031? Is that part of some type of a package? But I thought it was interesting. They had the Lakers at number 9 there. Vegas odds. Look how quickly, things kind of shift here. But right out the gate, of course, the Oklahoma City Thunder are going to be heavy, heavy favorites to win an NBA championship. The Minnesota Timberwolves and the Lakers were each plus 400 on ESPN Bet, Orlando and Denver, 1,500 and 1,600. So it kind of just starts putting all these teams out there. It's taking into consideration the Tyrese Haliburton injury, the Jason Tatum injury. So Vegas and ESPN Bet and everybody else, they're already kind of starting to put their opinions on all of this. Okay, I'm going to look at some of the comments here in just a second, and then we'll just do our weekend recap, and we will call it a day. Before I do so, I did mention this, last week. We do have a new partner here that's a part of the show. Shout out to Lexus Santa Monica. There's an individual there. He's the general manager. He has also got a piece of the ownership there at Lexus Santa Monica, Matt Unger. And if you guys have heard the name Matt Unger before, it's because when I was on 710 ESPN, he was there for a number of years. Max Kellerman used to do his reads. I'm going to give you just a quick idea of my relationship with Matt Unger and Lexus Santa Monica. Typically, when I buy a car, I drive a Lexus right now. It's from Lexus Santa Monica. When I buy a car, I typically am going to have that car 8, 9, 10 years. I'm not somebody that needs a new car every couple of years. That's my own strategy. It doesn't have to be yours. Across the street from Lexus Santa Monica, they have a pre-owned lot that they own as well. And you can get a Lexus. Beautiful, beautiful cars. The thing I like most about Lexus is they got this unbelievable, beautiful luxury to them, but they're also wildly dependable. You can drive a Lexus for 200,000 miles, and it's nothing to that car. That's my strategy I usually take. Matt Unger, which when I do the show tomorrow, I'll get you guys his email address. The one thing that I will just emphasize, whatever situation you are in a car, you have a lease, maybe you have a car right now, but you want to get out of it, start with Matt Unger. He's got connections all through Southern California. He can help anybody. You want to get a new car, you want to lease a car, you want to buy a pre-owned car. I will tell you that that dealership's got everything that you need, and Matt Unger is kind of the deal maker in town. They also are promoting the 2025 all-electric Lexus RZ. Very, very happy to have Lexus Santa Monica be a part of the channel. And again, these are personal relationships with people that I have, companies and businesses that I've done business with in the past. So it's very organic, and I could really, really get involved if there's something that you need. Certainly that's the case with Lexus Santa Monica, so shout out to them. All right, let's take a look at some of the comments. Then we will do our weekend recap, and then we'll call it a day. Long one today, huh? $112 here, still going strong. All right, let's take a look at some of the comments here. Let's see what we got here. What are people saying? All right, not betting Lakers to win unless AR is off the roster or Slee. Well, I can't get off the roster because I'm not on the roster. Can I say this? I do sympathize. I don't. When somebody says I want to trade Austin Reaves, I don't think it's crazy. So I wouldn't do it, but I wouldn't do it merely for the fact is because I don't think the Lakers are going to get the value that they're looking for. So I'm not trading him for, something that I don't feel like is equal value. If some of the other bigs that are out there become available and all of a sudden there's a deal that makes sense, I'm not holding on to Austin Reaves like he's a Luka. Obviously, he's not Luka. The Lakers have traded Anthony Davis before as well, so it's not like they haven't made trades. But I understand where people are coming from. I need it to be the right trade. I need it to be a trade that makes sense, not just for today, not just for tomorrow, but for the next 4 or 5 years. There is danger with KD. Last 2 places turned toxic when things didn't go well, so they better go well in Houston. Harold, I think the difference is I think Brooklyn's not a well-run organization. At least it doesn't seem like it. I think the players that KD kind of handpicking who he wanted to play for and everything else, or who he wanted to play with, were poor decisions by Kevin Durant. I think the Phoenix situation, Matt Ishbia and ownership there, I think it's clear that they tried throwing money on a problem, and those pieces just didn't work. I think Houston's set up well. I think they're set up different. I think they have the right coach. I think they have an identity. And I don't know if Brooklyn and Phoenix had those identities. I think he's going to fit really, really well there. Again, that's just my own personal opinion when it comes to that. Lively helped Dallas get to the finals as a rook. Herb, Thibault, all defense in early years. Many other examples. We are not above adding rooks to fill roles, in my opinion. I don't mind bringing in some young pieces. The only problem that I would just say is the timetable of as those young pieces develop. I mean, let me give Luka as an example. Luka has already got to the Western Conference Finals. He's already got to the NBA Finals. He's 26 years old. I don't think Luka is trying to hang around with some 18 and 19-year-olds to take his chances of making a deep playoff run if he doesn't feel like, hey, those guys are ready to go and they're in position to help this team progress, I guess you can call it. So that would be my only thing when it comes to that. All right, let's get a couple more in here. Nets, Suns, and now Rockets don't expect anything different. Yeah, some people out there don't think that KD is going to do much there. And then you got some people, Houston looks scared. I fall more on this, but I understand why people want to look at the last couple of times, the last couple of stops for Kevin Durant and not feel as confident about it. You guys have every right to feel that way. So I get where you guys are coming from that perspective. Okay, final thing I want to get into here real quick, and then we'll call it a day. Quick little recap of the weekend. Of course, the weekend recap is presented by the Wallace firm. If you or someone you know is in a serious situation, reach out to Brad Wallace and the Wallace firm to see how they can help. For more information on how they can help you, go to wallacewins.com/Sliwa or click on the link in my description. Okay, so really just kind of a couple things here from a weekend recap perspective. We don't need to recap anything in the NBA. We know what happened to Durant, now a Houston Rocket. We know what happened to the Oklahoma City Thunder. They win an NBA championship, and they're going to be the heavy favorites to win it again. The only area that I really would look at just coming off of the weekend, if you go look at the NL West now, the Dodgers are just really starting to separate themselves from the rest of the pack. They're 48-31, took 2 or 3 from the Nationals. San Francisco, 10 games over 500. Did they take 2 or 3 of Boston? I think it was 2 or 3 they took against Boston. And then the Padres, 7 games over 500, 5 games back of the Dodgers, took 2 or 3 from the Kansas City Royals. So the Padres kind of in desperate need for some wins. So they were able, obviously, to get some W's and try to get back on track. But the rest of the teams in the NL West are still doing work. If you look at the NL overall, just kind of look at the league of the NL, Dodgers now have the best record in the NL, Philly behind them, Chicago behind them, Mets, Giants, Brewers, Padres, Cardinals kind of round up your first 8, 9, or 10 or so in regards to that. So that's the only thing that I'd really pay attention to from the recap, because everything else I've already really done when it comes to the NBA, when it comes to the finals, and when it comes to obviously when it comes to the KD trade. Here's going to be the unique thing now is, okay, what happens the rest of the way? Middle of the week this week, we'll have the NBA draft. I know a lot of people were saying, hey, expect a lot of moves around the draft. So we'll all sit back, eat our popcorn, and get ready to see what happens around the NBA. But the 2024-2025 season officially in the books. I do appreciate everybody hanging out. I know we went a little bit longer than usual today, but thank you for being here. I appreciate you guys being a part of the show. Shout out to Eric Pincus for such phenomenal insight as he always gives. Thank you to the Wallace firm. Thank you to Lexus Santa Monica, and shout out to everybody that hung out for the entire show. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and I'll be back tomorrow at 8 a.m. Thank you, everybody.